Many people with autism spectrum disorders and pervasive developmental disorders have sensitivities to light, sound, touch, taste, and smell. For myself, this is very true in touch especially. I'm very drawn to soft things, and the resulting feeling I get can really bring down my stress and really improve my mood. Most people have coping mechanisms to deal with their stress, and really the important thing about coping mechanisms is that they all work. If you find something that works, it works. But they have different levels of how intrusive they are into your life and how restricting they are. So really you want to move away from really harmful coping mechanisms and replace them with less harmful coping mechanisms. For me, this is very intimately connected with touch. I use soft things as a coping mechanism to deal with my stress and general anxiety and just feeling overwhelmed as well. And one of the first things I used was in about grade 8, I believe. I would bring this guy right here to school. Now, this is an alpaca fur doll. It's a dog, a poodle, I think. And it's very, very soft. I actually have a problem not rubbing this on my neck, just holding it, so I'm going to put it down so I can concentrate on the video. And that's a very intrusive thing to have that in your pocket. I had it in my jacket pocket. I would pet it during class and stuff, and that was very alienating, I believe. It's hard to tell, but very strange anyway. So that was a very intrusive thing into my life and somewhat harmful because it affected my social behavior and relationships. And over the years, I started to replace it with less intrusive and harmful means of calming myself down. And this is kind of the next step here. This is just a stone with a flat face on it. It has one flat face. And what I would do is I would keep this in my pocket and just rub it like this. And that's obviously a lot better than keeping a whole doll in your pocket. But it's still weird because you're fidgeting in your pocket all the time. And that's still somewhat intrusive in terms of a coping mechanism. Although this is much superior to having this doll here. Oh man, that's so nice though. As a vegan, I do not encourage buying alpaca fur. It's not a nice thing, and as a child, I didn't know the consequences of my actions for this, but I do feel bad about this, and I'm going to continue to use this because an animal gave its life for this. So the rock is a pretty good coping mechanism, the smooth rock. That's pretty good in terms of little intrusion, but I actually even made another progression towards it being less intruding and less harmful, and that is just having a jacket or a sweater with a very soft lining in it. The soft lining on here very much calms me down, but it's something that I'm just wearing on my body and is not intrusive at all, and nobody would ever know that I was using it as a coping mechanism. And that's really the ideal, is if nobody even notices that you're doing it. That's the absolute best. And also there are coping mechanisms that you do in private too as well. For me, this is cutting my toenails and fingernails to an extreme extent, which I've taken under control in the past little while, but was kind of a embarrassing thing for me, and I'm now able to admit it openly on camera. Um, but yeah, that can be very dangerous and harmful, that kind of a coping mechanism, as you can cut down so far that you start bleeding from your toes and your hands, and make yourself prone to infection, hurt your immune system, and it's just really harmful and intrusive. So there's a lot of really private uh, coping mechanisms people will never see, but it's important to try and find replacements for that. For my nails, what I've done is, instead of basically, when I started, I would chew them all the time and chew and rip, which is very common in the ASD community, and I've seen it many times in my experience. So what I started replacing it with was just keeping wherever I went, or wherever I go, I have a small pair of tweezers, or not tweezers, nail clippers, and I'll just do a better job than I'd be able to do with my teeth. And that allows, the reason I do it is because the lack of sensitivity anywhere on my fingers really bugs me if there's any dead skin collecting or anything. I think that's kind of standard, but that's all I've done. I did want to stop entirely, and I had some success with that for a bit, but once they got long enough, I just couldn't help myself, and I would start chewing and ripping, and then I just started going back onto the cutting with actual nail scissors, which is the best. That's the way to go. An important thing to notice is that, or note, is that everyone's different, and you really have to experiment a lot before knowing what what ideal coping mechanisms are, and even if your coping mechanisms are harmful at all. That can be something that's very hard to admit to your ego, and I really do encourage people to continue trying even if they haven't had luck. I'm 24 and I've had a lot of time to figure it out, but I've got a lot of ways to go yet. So I think I'm going to leave this video here. I don't think there's much more options. It's really just replacing harmful and intrusive coping mechanisms with less intrusive and less harmful ones. And also, they still need to work for you. If they don't work, then they're not real alternatives. The other thing I'd like to mention is that I'm getting on in this series. I still have a couple more videos and topics I'd like to cover, but I'm running out of the main problems that I know people with autism spectrum disorders and pervasive developmental disorders suffer with. And if you have any ideas for videos you'd like to see, I'd be happy to oblige. And these videos are pretty easy for me to make, and I just enjoy practicing, talking on camera. So thank you guys for watching, and take care.